Wanting something to happen and being ready for it to take place are two very different things. If we think about the different things that occur in our lives, let alone our day, there are certain steps or a certain order of things that tends to happen in order for something to take place. Think for a second of a very specific occurrence that has happened in your life, and what were the things that needed to happen before in order for it to take place. Picture this. You're at an art table and you're folding airplanes with some children. There's some special paper that has specific designs where the children can choose. While you're folding one airplane for another child, there's a child that comes up and asks if you can fold an airplane for them. They take the piece of paper and they say, "I would like this one, please," and they put it beside you. You let them know that once you're finished with the one that's in your hand, you'll begin to work on theirs. At this point in time, the child begins to look at the different papers and begins to cut them and rip them apart. You say to this child, "Oh, it looks like you're ripping apart the airplanes. I wonder what you're doing." This child then says, "I asked you to fold my airplane. Why aren't you doing it?" And so you tell the child once again, "Do you see? I am working on an airplane right now. When I'm done this one, I will fold yours." The child then kind of folds their hands and grunts to themselves and sits there in frustration. You say to the child, "I see that you're a little frustrated and a little upset that you have to wait, but that's how things work. I'm working on someone else's airplane, and I can't just drop it and work on yours just because you asked me." A few minutes have passed, and you're about finished with this airplane. But then, you see that this child has gone to cut and rip the paper airplanes that have yet to be folded. Let's think for a second of how we would react to this child and their actions of ripping these paper airplanes. What would be some of the things that we could say in order to help this child understand what is going on? In the end, I said to this child that I don't appreciate you ripping and cutting up those paper airplanes, because I know there's a lot of children who are playing other things right now, but they said that they wanted to come see the paper airplanes when they're done, and they wanted to choose one to make. But if you cut them all up, then they're not going to be able to choose the airplanes because there's none to choose from. The child then said to me, "I asked you to fold my paper airplane, but you're not doing it." I once again said to the child, "I see that you're very frustrated and you're really upset that it's taking me so long to fold this airplane. But the thing is, these airplanes are not easy. They have a specific way of needing to be folded. And all of you are choosing your airplanes based on the way they look when they're done. And so, it wouldn't be very fair of me, just because you want to have your airplane faster, for me to not follow the instructions and just randomly fold an airplane and give it to the other child." As we were talking, this child went back to cutting and ripping those papers. I said to the child, "You know, it looks like you're not ready for me to fold a paper airplane. I'm trying to tell you what is happening, but you're not listening. And so I'm going to ask you to find something else to do." I then said to the child, "You know, by you cutting those papers and ripping them apart, I see that you're very frustrated. But you're also showing me that you're not able to wait patiently for me to finish this airplane and then move on to yours." I told them that I don't really appreciate that, because you're not respecting the words that I am saying, trying to help you understand what's going on. Instead, you're ripping all the papers so people can't use them. This child once again repeated that I wasn't helping them. In the end, I said to the child, "You know, I know you really wanted your airplane, but did you see that I had to stop folding multiple times to help you understand what was going on? If you were able to wait patiently or find something else to do while I was folding this airplane, then I would have been able to focus on folding this airplane and then move on to yours. But just because you wanted your airplane to be folded, you weren't willing to actually wait for it. And so it made the process a lot more difficult for both of us. We then went into a conversation discussing options for the future, how they could wait for something to happen when the individual they were waiting for was busy. For this child, needing to repeat and recognize how they were feeling was very important. But at the same time, me expressing how I felt towards their actions was very important for them to understand the bigger picture of what was going on. Oftentimes, with young children, they want things right then and there. But that's not how life works, and often we're waiting. The beautiful thing is, while we're waiting, there are other things that we can do to engage or prepare ourselves for when what we're waiting for is complete. And supporting children to self-regulate within these situations helps them to understand the power and the ability they have to, one, recognize how they're feeling, but then two, be proactive with how they're going to deal with it. Oftentimes, we want things to happen, but we're not always willing to be in that waiting process for it to take place. As we understand ourselves and understand the ways that we can engage with these moments, then we can both wait and be willing to be within that process so that when what needs to be completed is done, we're able to fully experience, fully appreciate what has taken place. When we do this, a cycle kind of begins where we see that as we take on a certain posture to do things, then we can experience a certain fullness in the outcome. That then spurs us on to continue to watch, think, be.